Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe below. I'm going to share with you today an album of a trip to Washington, D.C. and it was a wonderful, full of history, very educational trip. Loved it. Just loved it. I highly recommend it. A lot of my followers are American, and you've paid for it with your taxes. You might as well go and enjoy those beautiful Smithsonian museums. They're all free. Okay, so to begin with, we did take a trip to Arlington Cemetery. They don't allow you in there with your car or just walking around. You have to get on a bus. So we took that tour, and it was a very solemn, beautiful place. So I just did on this page Kiwi Lane on both sides. I double cut them, one layer in black to edge them. These photos were all in green and white, so I just wanted a little pop of color. And a lot of people will bring a rose to a cemetery, so I just tossed a couple of flowers onto the page, did some tombstones, lined all the photos up and tucked them underneath with a border punch along the bottom. And that was the beginning of that. We have several pages from Arlington. It was a beautiful place. All right, so this is, these photos are in gold and white. Beautiful, beautiful images there. So I have the sign photographed. So I used that for a title and found a beautiful frame to go with this. This is embossed white background with a border on top. I embossed this white background as well with a border on this to create a frame. And this tombstone image I found, and I embossed the base of this. I'll show you the embossing. It really makes a difference on pages. Absolutely love that. Now this one is the JFK. It was his burial site. It was a very moving place. I actually cried uncontrollably. I remember that day. So I'm giving my age away. I found these borders. The photos again are green and black, but dark green. So I used green and dark and black. I found a pretty paper, so I just did a border along the bottom. This tree border is an image from Ribbons and Rosettes. That cartridge was for making flowers. They're long ones, and you're supposed to twirl them to make 3D flowers. But the long strips make beautiful borders, and there's so many. I use a lot of them. So I highly recommend that cartridge for borders. Anyway, this is the Kennedy gravesite there. And then I had to write on this photo because the lettering didn't show up well enough. And so my fellow Americans, there's a quote from his speech, one of his speeches there. So I had to use a marker and go over it all. I did it. It worked anyway. I could not get a photo. This is the flame right there. I could not get a photo. I took several where the flame showed. So I finally got down really low to the ground, and that was all I could get of it. So I decided to make a proper flame here. But this, I think, is an Olympic torch. Anyway, I love these beautiful frames that I found. If you go to my website, meandmycricut.com, there are in detail descriptions of all these papers, the pads they come from, the cartridges that the images come from, the punches I've used. I describe everything in detail. Plus there's a Design Space link for every page. If you like them, you can download the link and copy the pages exactly. So this page, I thought this paper looked like crosses, and these were all tombstones here, so I really like that. That gave me a jumping off, so I picked a cross theme. I found these crosses in Design Space, and I gave it a page a pop of color with a single rose. I did a wide border with this, repeating this paper on this side to balance, and using it actually as frame for these two photos. I found a tree frame here because these were all surrounded by trees, and so it was very much a park-like setting, so I liked the background paper on there. So I repeated this paper here just with a little border. Excuse me. I don't really like images just floating in the middle of nowhere, so I felt I had to put a little border underneath this. So another Arlington. And this also was, this was the changing of the guard ceremony at the amphitheater. They do this routinely, 24 hours a day. It's a very solemn, beautiful, beautiful ceremony, and you sit on these steps. So the soldiers come from both ends and walk to each other and exchange the arms. I found soldier images in Design Space, so I just used whatever I found. These two were marching, so I thought that was great. Made it a patriotic page because of the colors of their uniforms, and it popped it a little with red. So I found a beautiful frame for this. After the ceremony, I walked up to the top of the stairs and just looked around here, and this magnificent theater was there. It was just breathtaking. All white marble. Stunning. Okay, so very European. This was the bus that we took the tour on. So I cropped that small to fit on this. Used this paper and just banners to show my images. And moving on from Arlington, this is now the Ford Theater, the site of the Lincoln assassination. And so this is the theater itself and the box. So in Lincoln's box, you can see the draped and flags are there. So I used patriotic paper, flag paper, and I found banner images on, I think it's Independence Day for this banner. It was very hard to find. I knew I had to scrapbook this album coming up, and I could not find American paper. I found it hard, but I did find this one pad called Vintage Nation from Paper Studio, and it saved my bacon, I'll tell you, because I had to use it. It was pretty much the only stuff I could find, so I had to use it often. So I did find a few stickers of stars and that. There wasn't a lot to work with, and there weren't a lot of images in Design Space for this type of album, so it was a challenge. I did find a Lincoln silhouette as well, and I just did a fancy frame around that. Very historical site, and this place had a museum. It's still working, that theater. They still use it, but there was a museum attached. It was, so here's, well, this is the house across the road where they had the Lincoln bedroom where he died. It's a museum as well. So they had the gun. Oh, it was amazing. And then they had drawings and a thing. So I just used Kiwi Lane on this, put a border on top. These are circles from the Martha Stewart circle punch that I cut in half and tucked underneath here and there, and used some American images. not a lot to work with some of these travel pages. Okay, so these photos were down in the basement of that museum. They had very interesting statues all around, so they're white and gold looking and black, so that gave me a color scheme, and I just popped it with a bit of red with the title. And this is like down in Ford's Theater. And a star. These are our tickets for getting into that museum. Simple. This was part of it as well. There was this tower of books that went 3 or 4 stories in that, around this circular staircase. So these were all books written on Lincoln. So there was a lot of them. I did a book theme then, so I have books, and I just did a title, some pretty frames, a border, and I used the stars for a border punch to trim that. I embossed this paper in a polka dot, and this gold, nothing like metallic papers being embossed. So that was good. Now moving on, this is the Library of Congress. And they are the exterior of the building. It's beautiful. And then this is a fountain out the front. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I photographed the sections. I think that's Poseidon and a horse. So I did a horse image on this because there were no images. I created a title and found a beautiful border. I lifted these borders, put them all over the place, and to give me some images. I love using Cricut images, so that's that page. So this is the inside of the Library of Congress. It was beautiful. This is the ceiling. So these colors are all golds and reds, and there were pillars in there, so it gave me, I just pulled from that the pillars to do a pillar here. This is just looked like a government building, so I used that image. And I found this paper that looked very similar to the images on this ceiling. So I was delighted with that. I matted both the pages with that paper. And that gave me this page done. Oh, I used a border punch on there. It was very like these flowers on the paper, so that's why I selected that one. So this is the Capitol building. There was this wonderful image in Design Space, so I used that on this page. There it is right there. I did matching frames, kept this very symmetrical. I used matching frames, a multicolored print, and pulled from the colors of this print, and it's smaller, and then a smaller print again. So I just put some little borders. I added them onto the pictures. There was a lot of sky in those photos, so I don't mind adding something like that to them. And made little corners here just to make the page symmetrical. So that's that page. Here's the Capitol again. I did a title, I Love Washington, D.C., and did this with patriotic paper, again from that Vintage Nation pad. So I used Kiwi Lane. I love that. It's a multicolored print on top, and I pulled the colors, coordinating prints from the colors used in that on a red background. So there's my Kiwi Lane back there, and found a frame that I liked for all three. The frames are from Elegant Edges. I use that cartridge all the time. And I did find this Liberty and Justice for All with it has the Capitol building on there. And I used a little border punch. I have a pretty corner punch, So I used it on the corners of these photos. And just a star. So that's that page. I like that one. And now we're on to the Lincoln Memorial. I used, this is greens and blue sky, and almost all these pictures there's blue sky and green grass, so there's a lot of similar colors. So I found papers in those colors and I did blocks of paper. I did the opposite on each page, and I used another coordinating print for a frame here. I found a silhouette of Lincoln and I embossed it and inked the top to make it look like it was a polka dot print, because there were polka dots here. I found a pretty border to use and just put a title on. This is a die. Once I'm done everything and I think, oh, it needs a little more, I'll just grab a die. I don't have many dies, but I have a few, because at the end I like to make sure if I want to embellish more, I just do it very quickly with a die. This is the Lincoln Memorial inside. So I just love this image I found. I looked up in Design Space memorial or memorials. Yeah. So I found this beautiful image of a feather with doves flying, and so I did it in gold and repeated it in white, and I lifted some of those doves up, so it's very, I lifted this feather up too, very pretty. And there's nothing like embossing foiled paper. Love that. It just sparkles. I try to emboss foil paper all the time. It just adds so much. So I had 3 photos of far away, closer, and up close. So I just lined them up that way in order and put a title on. It's a very simple page, but I like it a lot. I think it's effective. Now, the Washington Monument. It's so big you can see it everywhere. So I did find an image of it, and so I embossed it so that it wouldn't look so flat, and I lifted it. I did a shadow on it and lifted it. I repeated the black and white over here for a title and found an image of Jefferson. And then I used the image of the Capitol building, just the skyline of Washington here. It has the Washington Monument here, the Capitol, different. And this, I believe, is the Jefferson Memorial. So I just added a die top and bottom here at the end. And that page is done. Now this was the Federal Reserve and the Peace Monument. So I didn't, this picture had eagles on these tall pillars. So I found eagle images. And then because it was the Federal Reserve, I just added money because they could control the purse strings. And this is the Peace Monument. So I just did a damask type image and tucked it under to just fill out this page a little more. I didn't cut out frames. I just cut out pretty paper, larger, to make a frame that coordinated with the background as well. Pretty paper. So there's another one done. All right, we have Union Station. I'm from Toronto, and the Union Station is the name of our train station too, our main one downtown Toronto. So here I did trains and arrows for direction. These pictures were mostly black and white, and then there were flags here, so that gave me the red and blue to add to pop things. So I found a border with arrows, and I just did some arrow themes. a title here, and that's done. Now this is the Supreme Court. I absolutely hate the yellow on this page, so in Design Space I changed it to gold. I did yellow because these flowers were yellow here, but I didn't like it when it was done. But if I didn't want to change it all, so I didn't. Anyway, I used my patriotic paper again for this. This is, I found this is a die I have for a big corner, so I put one here and one here. Found patriotic frame there, and used this. The only image I could find for was the Scales of Justice, and this is columns, and this has a lot of columns, so I used this image here. I had a sticker, a 3D sticker for an American flag, and put that on there. And We the People. I could only find one sticker sheet of stickers for Washington, D.C. So they're used sparingly. I don't use stickers a lot anyway, so. And this was inside the Supreme Court. They had a pile of busts of Supreme Court judges, and the ceiling was beautiful there. So this was blue, gold, and red, so I used those colors for this page. And the only image I could find for a court was the gavel that the judges use. So that's a very plain page. And now we have the Civil War Memorial. Pretty paper. It was all black in this green and white setting, so I picked green and white paper and trimmed everything with black. I found a die to just put here and here and put a title. These are Creative Memories letters that I used for that title. A border punch here, and these papers coordinate, so that worked. Now on to a Smithsonian, the Space Museum we visited. We knew we wouldn't have time for many of these museums. We actually spent a lot of time here. It was amazing. Absolutely beautiful. And I knew I would be scrapping it, so I did find some wonderful papers for space. And so this was fun paper, all stars on it. And then this looks like globes, so I just did a wide border across both pages. And found an airplane frame. These were all life-size airplanes hanging in there. And this was like the front of a Boeing 747. It was immense. So this plane looked like it. So I did use this plane from Design Space. And put a title on here for the Space Museum. I put jets flying off the page. I like that one. These papers make these pages. They were a really good find. I found a couple of the pads. So this one has all space behind it. Air and Space Museum titles, so I had planes flying and planets, and I love that paper, so I found a fun frame for all these images. And this is a picture of us. When you come out of there, they have your picture on the bulletin board, so I took a photo, kind of like at Cape Canaveral. And that was it. Simple. Just pages, just frames on these. The paper was so good. More amazing paper. I recreated these papers in Design Space, so if you like the look of these, I created rockets and planets and that, so you can make it if you don't have the paper. So I just love this space shuttle. This was all about the space shuttle, so I did find an image of the shuttle. And this paper had everything on it with moon base alpha there. So this was the astronauts, the position they're sitting in the shuttle there. So there was a title for the space shuttle, so that was great. I did some nice frames and just pulled the colors from this paper onto this side with the frames. So that was another one. Now this one's all Apollo 11. There's whole rooms for all of these different sections. They're beautiful. They have amazing relics of everything. Spacesuits, the Apollo 11, everything was there. So this time I just did some cartoony images of an astronaut, moon and stars, and a robot there with the title Apollo 11. And because of the flag, I did the patriotic paper again. That was fun to do all those images. So this is all satellites. There was a room for satellites there. So the photos are all blues and golds, and this paper was all perfect for it. So I just ran some star borders around to join these photos and did satellites and stars all over the place. And that was easy. The paper says it all. Didn't have to do much. So there was this hot air balloon image, or it was a real balloon there, not an image. And I just remembered I had this Graphics 45 balloon paper. It's World's Fair. It's from the World Fair collection. And I knew it was perfect because it was teal, just like this balloon. I was very happy. Never had such perfect paper for a page. So it also has flowers on it. So I found some flowers and placed them all over. Did balloons everywhere, and great big banners of this paper because I loved it so much. Found a beautiful frame for this, and I just love this page because I love that paper so much too. This is the history of flight. So I just did a border from, this is from Art Nouveau or Art Deco perhaps. This is from Art Deco, the title on here. And then I just did some fancy corners on these and added some airplane images. Because these were all suspended airplanes way above your head. It was amazing to see. All right, and then there was the history of flying. This was the Wright brothers, actually. They had a whole huge wing dedicated to them, their plane, and all kinds of stuff about them. So I couldn't find much, so I did a plane and wrote the Wright brothers on it for my title. And then this is just flying high, and did a fancy frame there for an image of them. And with this bar, I did, it keeps the photos. I just did one wide border big enough to virtually be a frame for all of these photos across here. Did a borders back there of a stripe and on top of a polka dot paper. So that's that one. And this was the history of mankind. So I decided to use film strip images to put these photos in. And so I quite like it. I just angled them a little bit and then used smaller versions for the outside and the middle and put a title on it. So that was just another, a good way to get pictures, a lot of pictures on a page, using the film strip idea. Then we did another museum. This was the Smithsonian Portrait Museum. And the guys waited outside while my sister and I ran in here quickly. We whipped through this in a hurry. So I just had a few pictures. I did just a frame for each of them since it was a portrait museum. I used the same frame for a background for the title. And then I did a die image here that I just cut and placed here to fill up this space. Simple. And in this museum there was a magnificent display of silver, and I love silver. These pieces were huge. And so it was all silver and black, so I just did black and white on this page with a nice paper to create. I printed it in an 8x10 so I could do a big one, and I cut off the top and bottom. So I made a frame. There wasn't room for a fancy one, so I just used paper. And then I found a lovely border to do there and a silver tea service image in Cricut Design Space. So that's the end of my Washington, D.C. album. Please go to my website for more details and subscribe. You'll get notice when I post again. Thank you for watching.